They are getting
I'll take it a little far.
They all
Here,
are.
Rob. Yeah, they're all.
Where's Sandy? Down here?
Sandy's out. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so just. Shall we get started? How's that camera angle over there, Brian?
It's not bad.
Yeah, I saw it.
We couldn't move it any closer. The closer we come, we're not going to see this.
When the wheels come
can't
Is it as wide an angle as you feel right now?
So yeah, this is the widest, I guess. We can go. It's back
No,
there.
his heat went out.
See how good-
Oh, in his house. I thought there was some kind of a medical.
No, no heat.
Shall we get started? There you go. How you doing?
Not quite good.
Not quite what?
Not quite good.
Not quite good.
Yeah.
Remember, the mics are live now, so.
Okay.
Let's start this.
No, yeah.
Hiding behind Lou?
I can't believe people.
Ducking behind the camera?
It's
Can't duck behind that one, baby.
That's kind of goofy.
Literally betting against themselves that they could win $100.
I get along much better. I like when you're to my right. I like kind of like that right now.
Channel surfing.
could be approaching. We need to
Wrote it a little.
come across.
Always wanted to check your breath. Good morning.
This is the Board of Education regular business meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on April the 26th, 2007, to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, and the Clerk to the Borough of Watchung and the townships of Long Hill and Warren. Can I have a roll call?
Binder? Here. Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Here.
Mr. Pepe? You. Mrs. Mandel? Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett?
Here.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes. I pledge allegiance. Over here. Over there too. Wherever you want to stand. Fine.
Salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with reports and presentations as we normally do. So, Dr. Stromson?
Thank you, Dr. Seelig. I have no special report for this evening, but I would, with your indulgence, like to read a letter that we have written to Mr. and Mrs. Wyman this evening. We have Mr. Wyman and Nicole with us tonight, and we are very grateful in thanking them for their generous contributions to the Social Studies Department on behalf of Facing History and ourselves. We've begun to utilize a variety of resources to achieve important civic objectives in our school. The narratives and sources contained in Holocaust and Human Behavior, Choices in Little Rock, and Race and Membership in American Society, the Eugenics Movement, will help our students engage in thoughtful reflection about challenging periods in our history. The video resources, most notably Eyes on the Prize, will help our students reflect on their own behavior as individuals. With your help, we've made a stronger commitment to fostering social responsibility within our school. With your support, 3 of our teachers have had extensive training in Facing History methodology, and our Facing History and Ourselves elective course currently has a record number of participants. This winter, we will have our 3rd turnkey training session for the rest of the Social Studies Department, which will provide opportunities for our 2,200 students to gain exposure on these lessons. We look forward to having you come back and visit us in our school, and coming in the spring, hopefully, when we have the spring thaw and not on a frigid day like today, to watch the Facing History philosophy in action within our core curriculum, and to examine student reflection, writing, and our surveys. We are very grateful to you for your support and for your kind assistance to our district in advancing this opportunity. Thank you very much.
And we just wanted to present Mr. Wyman with a resolution from last March, a donation which was very generously received. And we thank Mr. Wyman and his family for not only this donation, but also the training that 3 of our teachers have received over the past couple of years, which, as Dr. Stronson said, have been turnkey to the rest of our department will continue to do so. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'd also like to thank the teachers who have come here this evening to support this project and to recognize Mr. Wyman. Mr. Wyman, would you like to say something?
Just very briefly, it's really been very gratifying for my wife and for me. We had 2 kids come through here not too long ago, including my lovely daughter here, and we, on an overall basis, couldn't have been more pleased with their total experience of Washington Hills in an era when people seem to be abandoning public schools. We think that what we've done here is really terrific and has contributed a lot to them. What we saw in this room is not something unique to Washington Hills. We think that too much of the high school experience now is really just preparatory to getting into college someplace, and so much of the attention goes to adding applications, so that I think you're under pressure here and you have too little in the way of resources to devote to some of the things that may matter a little bit more. And the teachers and administration here took this Facing History program and ran with it with enthusiasm that's very heartwarming for us, but also I think it's going to be tremendously beneficial to the kids at large here, and the enthusiasm particularly Jamie and Mary Brock. You have a terrific group of very dedicated and energized teachers here, and we want to thank you for the opportunity to expose to our kids, and we're here to support this program in particular with many of the Washington Hills faculty. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Watchung Hills has a good friend in you. Thank you. Oh, please! I would expect no less.
I told my kids that we were doing this, and I have 23 students this semester, 29 next semester. Only 4 this semester are boys. Ironically, 2 of the boys decided to write me letters. So I have them for you. And I also have copies of everybody who you don't know. Other than this, your name quite right, but it's still hard. And it was on their own accord that they decided to do this, to tell you what they got out of the test and how they've already changed in a few months that they've had the course. And then Mary and I took what we got out of Facing History and we ran with them. It's the 50th anniversary of Little Rock 9, the desegregation of Central High School. And we both did a unit together. We have a free period this year that's been dangerous. And we put together a 50-year Little Rock commemorative activity. And the kids really did fantastic work with it. We brought in some of the hard copy stuff to show Larry, and we could share with you as well. And then I also made Xeroxes of the poetry some of the kids chose to write instead. And from this, Mary and I coincidentally had a chance through Facing History and Larry's sponsorship to go hear Terrence Roberts. And Terrence Roberts is one of the original Little Rock 9. We heard him speak in a very intimate engagement in New York in the public library. 30 Facing History people, the 2 of us included, sat in on his incredible speech. He's energetic, he's funny, he's serious, you're crying, you're laughing. It was very, very powerful. And on the way home, Mary said, wouldn't it be great if we could get him to come to Watchung Hills? And I said, yeah, that would be great, but how would we do it? Well, she searched tell you how much it has affected not just my basic history course, but every single course that I teach, and the focus of how I'm delivering information. You can see from what the kids wrote that they got depth out of the activity, but they also got a lot of emotional maturation in the process. Really understanding people, mistakes, how to become a better person, how to make choices every day of your life, and there's always a chance to make a better choice. And it really has made, I think, a profound impact on the 23 years had to go to this one. And if you look at the last page there, it says the power of one, and this is the theme that hopefully the whole school is going to do some activities based on to kind of signify the arrival of Dr. Roberts. And it's going to definitely take place in the social studies department, and we've talked to the photography department as well as the arts department. And we have some projects here, and we hope that we can do this certainly as an interdisciplinary study, that when Dr. Roberts arrives in May, that we can have these presented to him, or even just so he can see them as he walks into the main entrance area. And as it says there, the idea is the power of one. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And there's a quote there by Margaret Mead, and that would be our theme. And it's, you know, invigorating for us to see kids get actively involved and take an interest and direction in their learning, because this is what makes learning meaningful to them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you. This is really well done, and I will have you back. I know Jamie and I and Mary and I have talked about having you make a presentation to the board sometime in February, I think we said, so that the board can get a sense of all the stuff that you're doing that connects not only to Facing History, but some of the other projects that you're undertaking, and doing a phenomenal job. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dr. Feldman. I don't have any comments this evening, so we'll move on to comments from Mr. Stiles.
I'll defer my comments to the budget presentation that I'm going to do later.
Okay. With that, we'll go on to
Whoa.
Dr. Bedance's comments.
Just a few
Whipping right through.
to follow in line.
Just moving right on.
I'm glad to say that our community service program in combination with our Nike program in combination with our grade level council program and all student council program collected the most clothing and food in a drive that lasted November throughout the country and came in first. They will be acknowledged in the second week of January in New York City. And this was under the direction of, as I indicated, our all student councils, as well as our community service. And the chief leader in this was one of our new biology teachers, Ms. Joan Soon. So it was quite an accomplishment to be #1 in the country. Along those lines, one of our seniors, Jackie Rosenzweig, was given the ARC Angels Among Us Award, which is given out to very, very few students in Somerset County, and that's quite an honor. If you had an opportunity over the last week, you saw some wonderful concerts. On Wednesday, we had our instrumental concert featuring our concert band and orchestra and our jazz ensemble. And on Friday, a number of over 200 to 220 students was involved in our choral concert. So that was a wonderful program. And what I'd like to do is turn the program over to our students.
Okay.
We recently had a Spirit Week. We're trying to do more than just one major Spirit Week this year, where we disperse it a couple weeks throughout the year, just so we can inspire spirit throughout. And this year we had a Warrior Day, a sports team day, pajama day. We had a hat day. We saw some interesting hats. And also, when we do these Spirit Weeks, we're also having teachers do hallway decorations where they can decorate the outside of their door. It's a little competition we have going on Monday. And I believe Miss Lettington and Mr. Gingloff won this time. And each win Dunkin' Donuts gift card. Just to help inspire a little spirit and stuff.
Great.
And our winter sports began last week, and our basketball opened up on Friday against Franklin, and we won. So our boys are 2-0 right now. They won on Saturday as well against Ferris, Jersey City, and our girls are also 2-0. Wrestling, we're third we came in third in the Roselle Park tournament, and I'm still not sure about hockey. I'm waiting for that. And fencing is 1-0. So right now, all of our sports.
Hockey's 2-0.
We're 2-0. So right now, all of our sports are, I think, doing really well, and we have perfect records right now. So.
Okay, thank you very much. How's the food in the cafeteria? So how's the food in the cafeteria these days? Good? Okay.
It's still the same. I mean, I didn't notice a change.
No change. All right.
No change. Status quo, huh?
I have a question for the student representatives. I just wanted to know if how things are going student-wise with understanding the rotating drop, and if there's any questions that you feel the students have or any more information you guys need to get that point across to the students here.
Well, I suggested that Dr. Gansey or someone have an assembly to form the whole school, because I still feel like not enough kids are aware about it yet, so they're not really concerned. That's just my personal opinion on it.
There's also a lot of rumors going around about what it actually would be. Some
Right.
people are saying, oh, I don't want to sit through 90 minutes of class. And I tell them, oh, it's only 56 minutes. And I realize it's not as bad as it
Right.
used to be.
So.
And so there's just a lot of confusion. So I think if Dr. Gansey did the same presentation he did for the student council, I think that would be a huge help.
So every grade.
Yeah, just like every grade. If you have
Maybe not the
one at a
seniors,
time or
but
something.
freshmen
The
through.
seniors aren't going to care a lot about it.
Right. But, so.
Couldn't that be put on the website for parents and other people too?
Yeah,
That
we
presentation,
just,
I'm not sure what it looks like.
we just finished a Q&A that we're going to post up on the website that I think will be very complete in terms of getting a good picture of information.
Because, Dr. DeGansey, are you planning to do a presentation? I think last time you said you might be able to do that.
There were two things I was thinking about. One, either a presentation as recommended by Russ, or two, visiting all of our all-student councils. They meet once or twice a month, and there's about 30 kids to 40 kids on each of the councils, and share with them, and then turnkey it to everyone. Because when you have an assembly, you're taking out one period, you're taking all the kids out, and it's away from class time. So I'm thinking about
Think of
both of
ways
those.
to communicate it. Yeah.
When do students actually elect schedules for next year?
February, March.
I mean, to that point, I mean, before people were choosing schedules, I'd like them to have an idea of how the schedules would fit into the rotating drop schedule, rather than afterwards saying, well, I didn't know that it would look like this or, look like that.
Good point. We'll talk about what the best mechanism would be for getting that.
I think it's a great idea, having a school-wide discussion, not just the ASC, but so everybody hears the same thing at the same time. We'll just figure out the best way to deliver that. Maybe we'll podcast it.
Okay.
I don't know how many kids would download that.
Well, if we give them an extra credit point, 5 points, they might do it.
That's true.
It is.
Any other questions? With that, we can move on. We've already done the had recognition of the Wymans and their generous donation, which I'm sure we're all very appreciative of. It's quite nice. We'll move on to committee reports. It looks like we have 5 committee reports tonight. We can start off with finance and operations. Rob, are you the?
Thanks. We had a meeting a week ago on Monday, December 10th. I'll go through the items briefly, but there's one that I'll just spend a bit more time on. We spent some time talking about the coming budget, and I think Tim is going to have a presentation on that tonight, also with a time frame. The hope is that in January, at our next Finance Committee meeting, that we'll have a lot more substance. Tim was waiting for the state numbers, which appear to come in at it. For those of you who aren't familiar, a 10% increase in our funding, which I guess will put us about $1,500,000, Tim, something roughly in the number.
$1,582,000.
$1,582,000. So we're happy about that.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. sorry, 1,000,007, it went up 150. So
Went up
1,007.
150,000, right? So it's about $1,700,000 of a low $30 million operating budget. One of the goals, there are two goals, of course. One of the goals that we're hoping to work towards is to bring this budget in under the 4% cap, and also with respect to a percentage increase, to keep it in the range of operating expense increase somewhere in the neighborhood of between 5 and 6%. And we're very much aware that this is a negotiating year. Also, utilities are increasing, health benefits increase. So there's, with that being said, there's not a tremendous margin, but we're going to be working very hard with that. The cafeteria, which was touched on before, it's a continuing source of discomfort. Not so much as to the tastiness or lack of tastiness of the food, although that's important, but also with the continued operating deficits that run each month. We really need about, on a break-even basis, probably need $100,000 more revenue, which would translate into about $50,000 of net income or net cash to cover a projected deficit. We've been working with Tim on that. One of the real important steps to increase utilization is with the increased usage of I call it the debit card, the cash card. Last we heard it was somewhere below 20%. To really have a viable program, and we really need that usage over 60%. And not only will it increase usage in the cafeteria, but also will speed the lines through because, needless to say, kids won't have to be looking for dollars, change, and whatever it is. With respect to some of the capital items, and we're going to be putting together a list, there are two that stand out. One is for the video surveillance system, separate from the alarm system, which has been funded and installed, right, Lou? That system. So we're talking about video surveillance system, and also the other capital expense that we need to talk about as well, and to see if where we stand with money the coming years is the sound system for the Performing Arts Center. It's a we have this magnificent arts center that costs quite a bit of money, and we're seeing increased utilization from obviously the kids at the high school. We're also trying to promote it within the community, to rent it out and make some additional funds. I know some of the course offerings, we're looking to increase the, I'll call it in front of the camera and then back of the camera type of course offerings. So we really need to get a, I'm not talking about a Lincoln Center quality system, but what we have now falls far short. So we're going to put together a list there. Also, we've been spending a lot of time looking to outside sources of revenue, sponsorships, one of the local banks, looking at potential, and I say potential with a very big qualification, seeing if there is any possibility of establishing communication towers in the back areas along Route 78, which the school could derive significant amounts of money. So we're looking, and Paul suggested, and I think it's a good suggestion, that since this is so important, also trying to market the football field, the baseball field with advertisements and corporate sponsorships. We want to get some money to landscape the front of the building. That we want to get a separate committee, tentatively called sponsorship. Probably a better name will come of it. So anyone who really has an interest in this, welcome any of you to help us with that. A couple of other things. One that sort of frustrates me quite a bit is that when the renovations were done to the school with the new construction as well, there was a potential energy rebate somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000. Paperwork was never turned into Jersey Central Power and Light. We're looking now almost 3 years ago. One of the problems is that the programs with energy rebates, the pot has pretty much been dried out and also the issue that there hasn't been a timely filing on the part of the high school seeking the energy rebate. So it's something that that Tim's been discussing with the architects to see if we can resuscitate that, because it's a significant amount of money. One of the things also we're going to have at the finance meeting, preliminarily to a presentation in front of the full board, is to have our Commerce Insurance make a presentation to us and then to the full board as to how things are looking in terms of renewal, claims history, because as you know, probably, well, I think after salary and benefits, salary, the health benefit of $2.5 million a year is the largest single expense. Let me just talk about one other, and I think it's a very troubling issue, and prepared to talk about it more in the general session, but it was raised at the Finance Committee. With respect to the bonds, we have two bonds. We have one bond for the principal referendum bond in the amount of $32,426,000 and supplemental bond of $3 million. Combined, you can do the math, $35.5 million roughly. Unfortunately, and this is very troubling, we have not billed from day one, and Tim confirmed this to me, to include in the Greenbrook tuition charges their fair share of the amount of interest payments that the district has been paying. Just to give you a quick snapshot of it, we're talking in the amount of interest that's been paid or will be paid from January 15, 2008, will be $6,585,000 and change. Greenbrook, at approximately, and these are approximate figures, of being 20% of this district, we're talking about an amount of money well in excess of $1 million that has never been billed to Greenbrook, that essentially the taxpayers of three other districts, Warren, Watchung, and Long Hill, have been in effect unfairly subsidizing the education of the Greenbrook students who are sent to this district. There's also the issue of the principal. If you look at the amortization schedules, for the first 7 or 8 years, it's much heavier on interest payment, and the principal sort of kicks in at a higher rate, probably in years 7 or 8. To date, we've had $1,090,000 of principal payments that we've made, and also, and this is, I would say, none of that has been factored into Greenbrook tuition. Whether or not the principal can in fact be assessed to Greenbrook is an issue that certainly we should address as a board and determine whether or not Greenbrook should be paying that. Just so you know, going down the history of this, $35 million of bonds, when they mature, if you look at principal and interest, we're looking at $60 million that the taxpayers of Warren, Watchung, and Long Hill will be paying. And without any adjustment, without any assessment for Greenbrook, Greenbrook will not have paid a nickel, because they haven't paid a nickel yet, of interest and or principal. So later in the board discussion, I'd like to kick this around. There are two motions that I'm prepared to make, which would require our superintendent to take all necessary and proper steps to determine and assess what Greenbrook should be paying with respect to interest and principal. Bernie has some more facts on that, and apparently it's quite evident and quite clear that Greenbrook should be including in their tuition interest payments. And as I said, to date, we were talking about $1,300,000 that has not been billed through the tuition payments to Greenbrook. In essence, as I said, the three towns have been subsidizing the education of Greenbrook. So that's a very, very significant and important issue, and it's one that really deserves the immediate attention of this board. So with that, I'll conclude the finance report, and I guess, Paul, I guess it's negotiations or whatever other committees.
Yeah, thank you. The some of the topics of which you discussed with regard to the Greenbrook and the payment on interest and things like that might or may not be part of the negotiations, and so legitimately that needs to be discussed in executive session. I just want to clarify, it does need to be discussed in executive session if we're going to discuss it at all tonight. The other thing I would like to clarify is the decision as to how to handle the principal and interest payments on that bond were made at the time of the original filing of that bond. And now if we were to take any actions, that would be retroactive or done retrospectively, because I would just like to clarify, it's not like we haven't billed that which we were expected to. We were never expected to bill because that was the original agreement and the way the interest and the principal agreements were originally struck at that point in time and the way that the bond was voted on. So any change to that, just to be clear, would have to be done retrospectively. And it's not a matter of the school not having done something. It's a matter of making a change to something which was already decided upon a long time ago. With that, we'll move on to, I don't think we're going to have anything on negotiations tonight, unless Peter Fowles or Bernie or Eric want to say something.
We can just report that we had a meeting, our second meeting last Tuesday night, and I think things are moving forward with our timelines in terms of the next get-together during January, and I think things are moving just as we had planned. So no factual, it's just we had the meeting and we're moving forward.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. We can move on to curriculum. Who's going to report on curriculum?
I'll do curriculum.
Great.
We had a meeting last week, and we had a few courses that were brought to the committee. One was an SAT preparation course, and that would be offered first to seniors, and then if there was space, then it would be offered to juniors, and that would be a half-semester course. And they talked about the resequencing of the math courses, so that right now about 60% of our students come into the high school with Algebra 1 under their belts, and those students then would be slotted to start with geometry in 9th grade. And currently, those students are doing Algebra 2. So then, sophomore year, then everybody would be doing Algebra 2. And that was discussed. There's a few other courses. In math, there's just a name change from Algebra Concepts with Trigonometry L was changed to Mathematical Concepts L. That's a third-year course. In the English department, there's a new course that was introduced called Literary Traditions and World Religions, and I believe there's a presentation on that tonight. And also in History, International Relations in the World in the 21st Century. Both of these courses are electives and are open to everybody at all levels, I believe all grades. And they sounded very engaging. And I believe we have presentations on both of those courses tonight. In acting, there's an acting workshop course that was introduced, and also a backstage technical theater workshop, which would utilize our theater space. And then a couple of name changes. Computer graphics 1, 2, and 3 would be changed to computer-aided graphic design 1, 2, and 3. And then there was another item which everybody has a memo on, which I brought up regarding Spanish and physics. Currently, we don't have a physics K, and that is something that I brought to committee, and Fran was good enough to put a memo in our packet to add that, as well as for Spanish 5K. Currently, a number of our Spanish students come into the high school at a Spanish 2 level, and then in their senior year, if they're a K student, they really can't continue with Spanish. So I also requested that we move forward with Spanish 5K. And again, I thank Dr. Strauss for putting that forth in a memo form. And that's pretty much what was covered at the curriculum.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Any questions? Curriculum questions? Pete, co-curricular?
We meet Thursday,
So you haven't met yet?
correct.
Closing it up. Okay, so we don't have anything from you. And then, community and business.
We
Did
didn't
you,
have community relations, did we?
you met
Yeah,
community
I
relations
have
met?
community relations also.
You want to report on that?
Sure.
It's been a while. It's been more
Sorry,
than a week. So
you
it's
all
all
blend
time.
together after a
They
while.
do. That was December 5th, so I think that's since we've last met. Actually, I thought it was a very successful meeting. It was Fran and Dr. DeGancy and Nick Saratello was there. One of the things we discussed was posting the mission statement that we have at the entrance, so that it's another place front and center that everybody could take a look at. But the main focus was, of course, it's community relations, so engaging the community, and one of the ways of doing that is through athletics. And we talked about having our programs with the sending districts and the feeder programs have more of an interaction, with the high school programs. And one of the things that did come up was for the football game next year, have honoring the incoming 8th graders at a football game. And Nick Saratello said that could be done at the home opener. And I think that would be a great way to, bring our kids up and, make them feel part of the Watchung Hills family. And we discussed, other ways that, we could bring the kids up. One of the things is opening up or welcoming and inviting the middle school students to our plays. Wednesday prior to the plays, there's always a senior matinee, and inviting the students up there and looking for ways to, invite our middle school and sending school students up here. And we also talked about a community-wide service project, and right now that's in the discussion stage and trying to get that off the ground. And then also, we also discussed having a board presence more so at some of the functions, and I volunteered to speak a few words on behalf of the board at the 8th grade orientations. And that's pretty much what we have.
So it was a very good meeting. It was very helpful.
Any other thoughts on board presence at meetings or events for the school?
Well, quite honestly, in terms of thoughts, almost any event that we have is an opportunity for somebody to give a few words on behalf of the board, welcome the public to come to our meetings, and maybe give a little bit of information as to whatever is currently happening at that time.
That'd be a good idea. Maybe we can help organize that or stimulate a little bit more.
Sounds great.
With that, we can, I don't think there are any questions on community relations? Sorry. Any questions on that? Okay, I think we can move on to international relations. You want to introduce it?
Yes, thanks, Brock. Brock has a very interesting course to present to us this evening, International Relations, the World in the 21st Century course proposal.
Thanks. So we're going from community relations to international relations, and I'm pleased.
Community.
I'm so pleased to bring you this elective opportunity that we would like to offer next year for grades 10 through 12 to students of all levels. It's our belief that since the Cold War has ended, there's been a lack of emphasis in the United States in international education. And that's an interesting thing because when you look at the end of the Cold War and the Berlin Wall coming down, there were lots of hypotheses and theories thrown about that this would usher in a new world order, a new way of looking at the international system, a new time of cooperation. And in some respects that's true, but in some respects it's also been a point of confusion. The United States is the only superpower in the world, or is it? Is China a superpower? What about the third world and their emerging needs? What about terrorist organizations? What about intergovernmental organizations like the European Union, which one could argue are stronger in terms of free trade and trade rules than the United States? There are all kinds of issues that we really need to have students critically interpret, analyze, and evaluate, no matter what profession or interest they have going forward. because international relations and foreign policy decisions, that when we make decisions to allocate resources, foreign aid, and so on to other countries, that limits what we can do domestically here at home. So studying international relations, in my view, is not an extra. It's a mandatory, essential piece of the social studies curriculum. And in the standards, it's evident in our world history standard and in our civics standard. So there's there's a very strong call from the 2004 New Jersey standards to do this. If you look throughout the document, you'll see that a lot of the activities are really geared towards helping kids become good analysts and predictors of international behavior. What are the actors involved? Nations, nation-states, IGOs, corporations, and so on. What are some of the theories involved? Once we get past that, most of the course is very project-based. It involves studying international issues. It involves studying area studies on a week-by-week approach, and the emphasis on students doing research together and presenting proposals for policy for the students themselves to really become the analysts and to put forward views, not just regurgitate what they're hearing in the news. So they're taking important primary sources, they're taking important authoritative voices, and they are developing their own paradigm, which is the most exciting thing, that Paradigms of the Future is the final 3-week unit of the course. The students are to develop an international model for the year 2050. So in 1950, it was the Cold War. It was a bipolar world. It was the United States versus the Soviet Union, us versus them. And that, as that model changed, we got a sense of America's role. What will America's role be when there is no clear-cut paradigm or model for the world? And I think that's an important question, no matter how you feel about American foreign policy. So our goal is really to really be inspired by the good literature that's out there, like Thomas Friedman. There are great books that are really giving us a lot of pause to think about international politics, international trade, and because it really is all about that, those questions 7 and 8 you see in the essential questions, the role of the United States and what implications will it have for America in the year 2050. We think this is a wonderful experience for kids of all levels. And it really is placing an emphasis on student reflection, discussion, debate, analysis, and the students developing their own perception of the world. And for those reasons, we think it's a course that would be wonderful for all of our students, regardless of level. It's an 18-week course, a semester course, so this overview will be a great experience for kids going to college and kids not going to college, if they can see, get some insight into how choices are made, so it doesn't seem so distant and so far away and so unrelated to their daily lives. And we're really excited to put this course forward, and thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Yeah.
Brock, it sounds terrific. You know, it's funny, when I was looking at the textbook, potential textbook choices, you know, for almost any other course, if you were plugging a new chemistry or math course, and you know, the book were written in 2004, you'd say that sounds pretty terrific. Unfortunately, I mean, 2004 to 2008, I mean, 4 years is almost like a millennium when what you're discussing. I mean, is it necessary? You know, I'm sort of thinking about this the way, if this were a college course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it necessary, you think, to have one textbook, or rather to take, whether it's Johns Hopkins International School, Columbia, to take a sampling, of recent contemporary, articles and scholarly articles, and make that, the centerpiece of the, curriculum,
Right.
syllabus.
What you're talking about, those authoritative voices, the research, the reflections, the commentary, that will be the basis for the second 2/3, the second 12 weeks. The reason why we need a textbook is we really want students in the first 6 weeks to learn those levels of analyses, to learn the difference between a nation and a state and what the national interest is. And there are many, and some of those are very low-cost paperbacks, which really can give kids a good reading level to get those levels of analysis, get some of those theories and paradigms, such as the North-South conflict, to help them just see a straightforward view. And then the next 12 weeks is to look at foreign affairs, foreign policy, The Economist, New York Times, and so on, all the great think tanks for international relations, and to take their view into it. And the textbook is really to deliver just some of those basic concepts in an educational sound way to the
Do you
kids.
have a sense with this course, are you going to cap enrollment at a certain number, 20, 25, or 15? I mean, is it going to be more seminar focused? I mean, have you thought that through? Do you think more seniors, will seniors get priority? Will this be viewed as a hybrid between a J class and an honors or AP class? I mean, I know you said you want it to be open to all, and that's a great idea, but how do you see it?
Well, the first question in terms of class size, I think 25 is reasonable. Through small group discussion techniques, through innovative seminar techniques like a fishbowl, you can make a large class seem small, and you can have kids respond in a multitude of ways. Double entry journal responses, looking at a problem individually and then reflecting after a group discussion. There's lots of good ways to get feedback in multiple ways. So, I think ideally we'd love to have a smaller class, but I think it's 25 students is perfectly reasonable. To run the class successfully and have all the kids engaged. And it's those differentiated techniques that allow us to do that. The second question was,
Well, I mean, when you said, I mean, it's not an AP class.
Right.
You said, you want to, open it to whomever, so I assume there's no prerequisite. And number two, I mean, with this, in terms of grading, I mean, would you see this more like a J level, class? I mean, I don't know. I'm just...
Well, the thing about social studies electives is that most of them don't have a level designation. So really what we just work on is setting the expectation for learning and getting those macros out there. For instance, the very first important one is what is the national interest, and whether it's a short quiz or a short writing activity or reflection piece, kids can profess their knowledge and reflect on that. I think the idea is to, differentiate the learning and differentiate the different assessments so that all kids can be successful. I'm not sure, in my mind, how that translates to a letter. I think all the kids, when they're put at the heart of the learning, can be successful through differentiation. And so, in my mind, we're just setting some straightforward goals with the 8 essential questions, and we'll see how it goes. And every semester, we'll just keep reevaluating it and seeing what the kids are producing, and go from there. But our goal is to have all students be literate in terms of international studies.
Do you have a preference whether you want to start this in the fall or the spring, or next year?
I'd want to start it right away. We want to go for it in the fall. Electives are offered depending upon the enrollment and requisite staffing availability.
If it's a smashing success and you have initially 50 kids expressing an interest, have you thought about offering it both semesters?
Generally, we would. If we had 50 students sign up, it would. The way our scheduling works, it'd just be a fall and a spring. We generally don't do fall or spring. Spring. But my thinking is that we'll have 50 students for this right off the bat. That's just, and we'll see very soon. In early February, we do a social studies electives guidance day, where we bring the courses to the student body and take that first day of the second semester to talk about all the different features of the courses, and every teacher makes a presentation. And from there, very quickly, we have an understanding of what the support is, what the interest is for the courses, and then we can go from there. But
does anybody else have any?
Are you teaching it?
No, I am not teaching it.
Oh, okay. Have you picked a teacher yet?
We're looking at several teachers, but I think Andrew Appel is the one. Andrew Appel was the one that was instrumental in getting this course proposal to us and presenting a lot of his ideas and passion for the subject. So we're excited about moving forward for next year.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Do you have any more questions, Ron? I don't want to Just want to give everybody else a chance also.
Also want to say thank you, Brock, for putting the sort of a mini map in here for folks so they could see all the thought that's gone into this course. The idea that we're focusing our work here in terms of course development on analysis, synthesis, and evaluation of information, not just simply lecture, respond, read the book, do a test, lecture, respond, do, read the book, have a test. So I think you can see the level of detail and thought that's gone into this is really outstanding, and I thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Do you have another one?
Yes, we have one more. Now we have the B team here today. Literary, no offense, Mrs. D. I'll consider myself the B team. Mr. Ross had a heat emergency at his house. So granted that it's about 20 degrees out, I think he had to take that pretty seriously. So between Mrs. DiGerano and I, we'll do our best in trying to advance Mr. Ross's concepts here in literary traditions in world religions. Be kind, go easy on us.
As Mr. Ross has spoken with me about this particular course, he indicates clearly that through many conversations with his staff in the English department, that many students do not clearly have an understanding of the allusions and some of the symbols and some of the forms of the world's religions. And what he's looking at doing in coordination and in collaboration with some of the staff members is to develop this course, Literary Traditions in World Religion. What he has indicated clearly is that he would like to have this particular course help students refine their thinking and writing and reading skills through looking at many of the writings of our world religions. But not so much in terms of content, but in terms of literary style, in terms of narrative format and structure, in terms of the poetics, in terms of the devices that are used, tracing narrative origins, using religious writings. For example, one of the major things that he often uses here to explain this is, for example, students when he's teaching of Mice and Men, making reference to Cain and Abel, and that's a very pronounced symbolic element of that Steinbeckian novel. Students are unaware of it. And in that regard, he thinks and has explained many times that clearly in college and clearly through high school, many of these symbols, these poetic devices, the narrative structure, etc., students are missing a large portion of this by not having a clear understanding of it. And not only are these poetics and the structures revealed in novels, but they're revealed in movies that students see. And they're revealed through allusions, metaphors, analogies in music. If, for example, on page 2, we're to look at the course description in the second paragraph, I think it kind of reads very succinctly as to the core of what he's attempting to do. Students will be able to better recognize the world religion's literariness in academic literature encountered in the grade level English classes, but not only those overtures, but the movies and the music and journalism and stories that students see. And if, for example, we were to go over to the map type of structure, we can see that Will has and his staff have formatted this into 4 major units: the narratives, the poetics, the allusions, and the translations. And it clearly reflects the New Jersey Core Curriculum Content Standards. Those are the numbers that are referenced on the far right-hand column. And in looking at the general teaching strategies, there is an array of things listed: lecture, discussion, collaborative groups, round robins, jigsaws, rally robins, podcast blogs, peer teaching, peer editing, web quests, the Socratic method, and use of exit tickets, so that there is a wide variety of modalities that are appealed to for our students. Clearly, the activities and the projects, as Fran indicated in terms of Brock's presentation, also reflect evaluation and higher level thinking skills. Will has indicated on the last page, on page 4, under resources, that he would like to take, and he and his staff would like to take excerpts from those resources cited. His staff and he envision this to be a semester course open to all levels of students, grades 9 through 12. And I think that's the basic overview.
I don't think I could add any more to that, Mrs. DiGeronimo. You were certainly an excellent A-team there.
No, thank you.
Questions? Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to Mr. Size, who will give us a budget process update.
What's the password, right?
Rob, did you guys, Rob, in the Finance Committee, did you have a chance to see the process at this point in time?
No, was that the
talked about
timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen the timeline.
We did talk about
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I think is it presented? No, Warrior.
Change the password after
Change the
tonight, guys.
password.
Password's fine, my spelling is not very good. Thanks. I just want to talk about some of the budget planning that we're going through and some of the information that's come down from the, that's shorter than I am. Some of the information that came down from the state, or up from the state, depending on where you're looking at it, that I was privy to at a seminar that I went to last, I think it was about a week and a half ago. Brian, first slide. I'm going to cover three categories: some of the state guidelines, the state aid that Rob has already talked about, and then our calendar. One of the terms you'll hear the state use, and you've heard it last year and this year, come up with a user-friendly budget. And what they're talking about is not the budget that we present to the public, not what's on our website or anything like that. It's the state format. Here we have a format that we hand into the state, and we advertise that budget. And they have looked at their budget documents, and the public has, and quite frankly, they're not as understandable as they want them to be. So when you hear user-friendly budgets, they're talking about their software and how it's presented to the public. And one of the things they did, and they finally listened to some of the things that we were telling them, is they're changing some of the wording on some of the lines. And here's an example. They have a category called student-related services. They're going to change that to guidance. Hooray. Not simpler, right? It's about time they actually listen to us. How about that? So those type of things are going to help out in that budget format. They also have a condensed version of the fund balance recap. Quite frankly, the way they had it was so confusing. I'm glad that they're doing it, although from what I see, I don't think it's going to help too much, but it'll be better, right? Some of the things you're probably aware of already. The cap is 4%. It will be 4%. That's not going to change. The cap waivers that were in existence before will probably be there. There are a couple of new ones. We probably won't be able to take advantage of them. Enrollment is figured by the state. Enrollment, a cap waiver allows you to spend over and above that 4%. I went back a step. The enrollment we probably will not get because it's a state calculation, just so you understand that. We are not calculating that, and I don't know where their figures are coming from. They come from last year's actuals that they used versus what we project. So it's not going to be like it used to be. It used to be we would take our numbers and compare it to what we're projecting. That's not the way it played out last year, and I don't think it'll play out that way this year. So don't count on that. We won't get that. If we do, I'll be surprised. Capital outlay and insurance and energy costs, Rob talked about insurance and energy costs going up. And if it goes up above a certain amount, you can get a cap waiver for it. But one thing I do want to point out, the cap waiver process used to be simple. It's not going to be simple. And I said not so friendly. It's going to be scrutinized heavily, and they're going to look at each line item to make sure that we have enough efficiencies in our budget. They're going to look at shared services Do we have enough shared services in our budget? So it's not an automatic. A cap waiver is not automatic. It will be scrutinized heavily.
Tim, just, I don't, maybe some other people do. With cap waivers, is it, once you qualify for a cap waiver, whether it's, health benefits or students, is it a dollar for dollar? If they set it at $100 and we're at $105, does that mean that the extra $5 that's in the, on top of the baseline, would be exempt from the cap? I mean, is that how it's, simply?
Essentially, if you want to look at it this way, your tax levy is capped at 4%, and it is, if you have that cap waiver, it is dollar for dollar, you can spend above that 4%. So it is dollar for dollar, yes. Right. And under the guidelines, and this is kind of important, in the past we had separate proposals. If you had a separate item, for example, if you wanted to repair a track and you didn't have room in your budget, non-T&E item, you can put it out on a separate question. Well, now you have a supermajority that is needed to pass that question. It can't be 51%, it has to be 60%. In the past, that was a little easier. Not a lot of separate questions go through 60%. That's tough. T&E stuff, that's thorough and efficient education. You can't put an item, and this isn't new. If you have an item that is considered thorough and efficient, like if you had a course that you already had existing, it's part of your thorough and efficient, you can't put it out in a separate question. You can't do that. New is if it's defeated, the township cannot reinstate it. So it's a done deal. Once it's defeated, it's out. New and administrative costs, there will be some data that we have to provide. For people who earn over $75,000, they want to know everything that you can possibly earn, any kind of reimbursement you get. Not sure if that's going to, I know it has to be submitted to the DOE. It may even have to be advertised. I'm not sure yet. We haven't gotten that information. State aid that Rob talked about. There was information released last week by the governor. There is a new formula. That's good news. Any formula is better than none. The only thing I can tell you, there's 10% increase. That's what we had. We had $1,582,000. I think that was the starting point, and then you add 158 to that, and that is what our state aid figure is, at least what they projected. Again, it's not etched in stone yet, so it's kind of important. I have that on the next slide. But the increase is basically due because we had enrollment increases for the last 7 years. There will be some tie-in to something called an adequacy model, and that's something you're going to hear that term. You should pay attention to it. There's a determined adequacy model that the state has determined that this is the district that they feel is spending adequately. And there were increases of 10% and 20% in for districts who had certain enrollment increases. 20% was given to those who were within this adequacy model. 10% was given to those who were outside of that. So looking at that, it looks like we were outside of that, although I don't know. I don't have the figures in front of me, so I couldn't tell you. And they haven't released them yet. Thanks. And then, a couple of things. The paperwork that I gave you said that the districts are held harmless for 3 years, meaning you can't lose aid for 3 years. But the folks that met with us in the finance office said 2 years. So I don't know which one's right or which one's wrong. 2 years is better than none, so I'll take that. The formula has not been approved. Very important. You got to understand that it has not been approved yet. So this is just the governor coming out with some numbers at this point in time. And some of the concerns that we all have to think about here is some of the terms that they're using with the formula. Which, again, we haven't seen the details yet. Wealth equalized special education aid. That's something you got to think about because what they're basically saying is they're going to equalize categorical special ed aid. And obviously in an area like this, that's not going to be a positive thing in terms of what you were going to receive. They are tying in accountability particularly with NJ CUSAC, to aid. And I don't know what that means yet, but I can't imagine it can be a positive thing. But that's me. So I mean, I think those are kind of things you have to really look at. There's one other thing that's not on there that I did talk, that they do tie in free and reduced lunch applications to some of those aid categories. And again, I don't know if that's going to help this district. The calendar, there's some important dates that we have. February 4th, we'd like to do the initial presentation and adoption, and that is because the submission to the county superintendent has moved up. It used to be in the beginning of March, now it's mid-February. That didn't make me happy. But March 27th is the public hearing. That's proposed, and then Election Day is April 15th. In the Finance Committee, we did talk about, if we need a special meeting before the 15th, that we'll try to plan that, just in case we need an extra budget discussion date. And basically, that's it. Any questions?
One thing we talked about, and I apologize if you, at the finance meeting, because it's obviously it's getting greater and greater last year, this year, legal expenses. Is that, do those expenses, outside of the cap?
No.
Tim?
No, legal expenses are not outside the cap.
Even, in an extraordinary situation, there's no
within the cap.
Definitively black and white, too bad.
Yep. Yes.
If we're doing initial presentation and adoption on February the 4th, I know state aid numbers normally come in later than that, but when will we normally have estimates in there, some idea, when will they let us know what they think it's going to really be? I don't know, Paul. The fact that they've already released some data, I believe we're going to get them earlier. The thing I worry about with presentation is the budget documents themselves. We're not supposed to get that to January 23rd, and that has the state budget documents. I mean, we prepare our budget outside of that, but their documents have something called edit checks. When you enter the data, you check all the edits to make sure what you're doing is, accurate, as accurate as it can be. So there's going to be a short turnaround time. We're going to get it to 23rd, and we're going to have to pump that information and make sure that it's correct. But yeah, I don't know. The state aid generally is after the governor's address, and I've heard they were going to move that up a little, although I don't know. It's all hearsay at this point. Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
With that, we can move on to the first, opportunity for the public to comment. We're trying to learn how to use video, do good things with videotaping, so I'm going to ask the public to come to the podium to speak. Give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Please address your first comments to agenda topics only, okay?
My name is John Baer. I teach in the Social Studies department here. And I would like to say that I am here also as a representative of the Watchung Hills Regional Education Association, but I'm not that now. Okay, so I'm just myself. Curious about the course on religious literature. A couple of questions that come to mind. Cain and Abel. That's a symbol that is used apparently in one of Steinbeck's novels, whatever. Will that be read as taught as a symbol, or will that be taught as a fact? Will Cain and Abel itself be a fact, or will it be a symbol? I think that's a very important question to deal with. Jonah and the whale, will that be treated as fact, Will that be treated as myth? How will that be handled when it's being talked about in terms of a symbol in literature? You're talking about symbolism in many different religions. Will children be taught that all of these religions are true? That none of them is true? That one of them is true? How will that be handled? Because if all of them are true, you're going to have a problem. If none is true, you're going to have a problem. If one is true, you might have a bigger problem. And so my question is, how are these biblical or spiritual religious accounts going to be treated? Because it's almost impossible, I think, to talk about them without discussing their veracity in and of themselves. There are critical works that will also be used. They were cited in Mr. Ross's report. What is the bias of these works? Are these secular works, religious works, atheistic works, theistic works? What is the bias of these particular works that will be used? Will the Da Vinci Code be put on the same par as the Quran? I see here peer teaching will also be used. What do peers know about this? What do a student's peers know about this? Or how are they authorities? I also want to know about the authority of the teacher presenting it. What is the particular bias of the teacher presenting it? Grades 9 to 12, is a ninth grader ready to be told that his religious convictions are false or be seriously challenged in a public setting? I just think there's a host of problems here with this course that need to be addressed, and would really ask the Board of Education, Mrs. DiGeronimo, the Curriculum Committee, et cetera, to take a look at this before they put this course into the curriculum. I know it's one course I would not want to teach. I would think that it would be a very, very difficult course to present in an objective manner. Another question I have, and my final question, I've been told that this course was voted down in the Curriculum Committee by a vote of 6-2 with one abstention. I wasn't there. I could be wrong. Correct me if I am. So if indeed this was voted down in the Curriculum Committee, how is it being presented here? Again, I wasn't there. That's what I was told. So these are my questions respectfully presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we, any other comments from the public at this time?
Yeah, it's not a religious course.
Okay.
It's not religious at all.
All right.
We can
I don't
address
want to
it
do
offline.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this point in time from the public? Okay. With that, we can move on to board discussion. We'll close the opportunity for public comment, move on to board discussion. You have a copy of the board goals as we handed them out last time. There were 4 of them. They were attachment AC. I'd asked for feedback and comments from the board at that time. I didn't receive any up to this point in time, so I'm assuming that there were no comments or changes that have been requested. They're pretty high-level goals.
How do we answer, what are the answers to this question?
We have the board evaluation material was sent, self-evaluation material was sent out. We passed it out in paper at the last meeting. I believe it was issued electronically the next day to all the board members. We're asking for a response by January the 7th. It doesn't come to me, it does not, don't send it to me and don't send it to Fran. It goes to Gwen Thornton of the New Jersey School Board Association. This is an important effort on our part to do 2 things. One is to take a look at how we think the board does, So you get a chance to provide feedback on how you think the board operates, as well as how you think you work on the board. So it's an important opportunity for us to do kind of an introspective look at ourselves. And we need the feedback by the 7th. Now, we're all going to be, school's off as of half day next Friday, so we come back on the 2nd, I believe, or maybe the 3rd. Huh? This Friday, I'm sorry. I'm off a week, I'm sorry. This Friday, we are off after half a day. And then we have the break period, and then we come back on the 2nd or 3rd of January. And then the first meeting is the 7th, and we need to have the feedback back to Gwen by the 7th. She will then consolidate that feedback, and we will then have a chance for a board discussion on that feedback sometime toward the end of January. Okay. So please take the time to go through that material. If you don't have the material, please let me know. We'll make sure you get a copy of it. If you don't have it on paper, or if you don't have it electronically, okay? Either way, you can get it down to Gwen Thornton. The mailing information is on the first page of the form that she provided to us. Okay. We talked about having a special executive session meeting like we did last year at just about this time to deal specifically with construction. And we had talked about, and there were 2 dates that had been proposed that seemed to be available to our attorneys, and that was the 17th of January and the 30th of January. Did everybody have a chance to look at their calendars and determine whether or not they would be able to make it either the 17th or the 30th? I want to try to maximize participation at this meeting.
When are the board meetings fall in January?
You know, this is...
the regular board meetings.
Yeah,
7th and 22nd.
Because Martin Luther King is the Monday, so it's the Tuesday.
Right, so the 22nd and the 7th.
So the 17th, I think, is a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And the 30th, I think, is a Wednesday. And they avoid, they're in that off week, I think. Laura, do you know if you, Bernie, can you make either of those days? Laura, do you know what days?
I'm not available on the 30th, I'm available on the 17th.
Okay. Rob, do you know what days you might,
I mean, it
you want
doesn't
just
appear
look-
either one for me, so Florida, you know,
you get either one?
17th.
Okay.
Is that going to be the evening, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we'd probably do it something like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, something like that.
Either date's good for me.
Either day? Lou, either day? Eric?
Should be fine.
Either day, unless you get another emergency. And Peter? Either day? All right, why don't we, you know, unless something major comes up, let's just shoot for the 17th. That way I think we'll probably, my vice president is not here. I haven't checked with him, so I don't know what day he's available. But we'll shoot for starting at 7 o'clock on the 17th, okay?
We'll send an email out to them.
We'll get an email reminder out, and we'll have a chance to talk about that again on the 7th of January. With that, we'll move on to the next board discussion. I'd like to keep it specifically to just the videos, and we can address the other matters later on that might want to come up. Bernie had a great session. We had a little fun video viewing session here in the library, actually. I guess it was last week, of some of the greatest video you can imagine. It was board materials. We were taking a look at some of the board materials and how various histories or genealogies of that and technology and things like that. And so we would, as Bernie and I and Sandra had agreed that we'd take a look at those and come back with some recommendations to the board so we could try to move forward with regard to video taping and then getting those out. And Bernie took, you guys know Bernie, he took lots of notes and he put them into a list for us and has provided it to us. And so Bernie, you can go through that and give us some feedback on what we tried to do.
Sure, thank you, Paul. I'm not going to go through all the list that I put together, but I want to make one point very clear that I want to congratulate Fran and Brian for continuing to work on this through the last few months and bring it to a point where it is ready for prime time and ready to go to the cable TV. It's also ready for our website. Just to sort of split that apart, there is a format that's used for the taping of the meetings and one meeting will fit on one DVD. And that's a pretty high-quality format that would go to the cable TV stations. We looked at about 10 different meetings, and we found that some of the early ones from perhaps a year ago, the sound wasn't that great. With the addition of these 10 microphones on the tables, roughly August, the quality went way up. So with that, I think we are ready now to really start sending these DVDs to the cable TV stations. And the other thing that we looked at was what's called a compressed format, which could actually be used for web access. So for those of us who have broadband access, you could actually go up and select a meeting and just look at it. I might point out that when we first passed this resolution to do this, it was almost 2 years ago. Technology has changed quite a bit since then. YouTube has taught everybody, you can do a public meeting and it can be put up very easily. So the conclusion was that we're ready to do two things: send it to the cable stations and put the meetings up on the website for downloading or viewing and what's called video streaming. So that's we're there. Fran, again, thanks. And Brian, thank you. I think it's just a matter of doing it. The only other issue to be resolved is we need to have something in the building where if a member of the public wanted to come look at it, where would they go? And I think probably the board office with a computer is probably the right place. Then there's some other details. Well, do you have a library of all the DVDs? Do you have a library of DVDs with the compressed format so you can put 12 meetings on a single DVD? Or do you not even have any discs there? You just say, look at it from our server, and then nobody has to worry about checking it in or checking it out, and it's a lot easier to manage. So there are some details to work out. There's the archiving policy, and I'm sure under the Oprah there are some rules that we have to, how long do we keep the DVDs? But these things are now so small, if you can fit 12 on a DVD, I think you can archive these for a few years, and it's not a very big challenge to do that. So again, I think we're ready to move forward. Fran, thanks for getting us to this point, and Brian, thank you too.
Questions? Jerry?
The only question I have is at one of the Personnel Committee meetings, Dr. Charney had raised an issue as far as the support from the staff needed and how that should be accounted for, whether it should be stipended, whether it should be, so I don't know if that came up during the conversations at all as far as
No, I think that has to be worked out, and it's a question of how long does it take to do it. I mean, it may take a computer a while to do the processing, but it's usually, start the computer and go back when it's done. And that in fact is why I think we should lean towards putting it on a server rather than having to say, if you want one, you get a hold of somebody in the district, they'll make you a DVD. If they want it, let them download it and they can do what they want with it.
Well, I would just ask then if you're having a list, that somehow you add to the list the necessary support time, whether it's videotaping the meetings or putting them up, or just so that we have a way of accounting for.
I think that's fine.
Time.
Fran, if you would just
Yep.
add that to the list.
We'll bring it
That
up
was
at the
Dr.
next
Charney's
personnel
concern.
meeting, how we'll handle the
But
support.
I don't know whether we need a resolution, but I think we're ready to start sending them out to the cable TV stations now, and within a few weeks, we should start putting them on the website. One of our suggestions is not to undercut the cable TV stations by putting it on our website until, let's say, 2 weeks after the meeting, so that we give them a 2-week head start to show the meetings.
I think what we can do is contact the cable stations and get that person, because they may need special considerations in terms of media, and they may want leaders on it to identify what it is in trails. We just need to know that so we make sure we hit the needs.
I think, would you have Brian do that, Fran?
I'm sorry, it's Bernie.
Would you have Brian contact each of the cable stations and
Yeah,
work that out?
we can certainly do that. In fact, we've had some contact from them already
Good.
looking for this information.
Can we sell commercial time on it?
For a fee,
You
yes.
can try. You can try. I'm not sure.
I don't know that you'd want commercials with the board meeting.
Listen, I've seen a few of them. I don't think there's going to be much commercial interest, but you never know. We might try. Any other
See that
comments on the
budget
video?
presentation?
Questions for Bernie and me?
Do we need to make a motion, or there'll be, I guess is it going back to August, Bernie?
Well, I think
I mean, will they be, we don't need to take any action. I mean, Fran will,
It's
with
a
the
public
technical
meeting.
people, send the completed
It's a public meeting.
DVDs out, correct?
Yeah, it's a public
If I'm not
meeting.
mistaken, we made a motion a long time ago, once we could get everything together.
I'm not real sure what that motion said, quite honestly.
I think we'll give a directive to the administration to make sure that they follow up on this.
Well,
Make
we
sure-
approved the videotaping 2 years
Right.
ago.
Yeah, in
So,
January,
I guess, I don't think, Paul, right, that we need to make another motion to distribute it, because if you're videotaping, it's sort of implied that you'll be distributing.
Let's just check policy. We'll check policy on that. Just if we need a motion, we can bring it up on the
Well,
7th.
Well, do you want, should we make a motion now?
No, what I'm saying is let us check what policy says and about how we should word the motion, if we need one. And we can always do that on the 7th.
I don't think there shouldn't be any technical blocks or any issues with as we proceed forward. I think we give a directive and ask the administration to pursue that with the stations. And we'll see how the progress is on the January 7th. And if we need a motion at that time, then we have, to follow up with policy. Is that where you wanted to head with that?
No, I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
So hopefully by January 7th, they should be ready to be distributed.
And also by then, maybe Brian and Fran and everybody can talk about what's the best way to archive it, make it available in the building. And the debate is DVDs versus just put it on a server, and how do you work that process? And we're not going to do that tonight, that's really them, for
Or
them to
maybe
worry
some
about.
third alternative that we haven't thought of.
Yeah, that's right, another one.
Okay, so that's the video. Any other questions on the video? Great. With that, we can move into the action items. Do we have any of the A's that people want to pull for separate voting purposes?
Can I just ask that A1 be and A2 be split to be different dates?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you want to handle it? Okay, so we'll have
We had an
A1 be.
A1A and an A1B before, or something like that, whichever way. Some of us were not at the 19th.
Can we just note that you don't vote for the one on the 19th then?
That'd be fine.
Can we just do that?
I'd like to abstain from
Okay.
that particular date.
Did anybody else have any concerns about pulling A1 through A7 as separate, for separate voting purposes? All right. Can I get a roll call vote then for A1 through A? I need a motion, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion?
I'll move A1 through A7.
Can I get a second?
I got it.
We got a second. Any discussion on A1 through A7 then?
The only question I have is, it won't hurt the kids in A5 to be out for a year away from the school?
Oh, my goodness, a typo, thank you. Yeah, it would hurt them a whole
Well, they
year.
would've liked that, huh?
A5 should be 08.
Do those who moved and seconded object to making that 2008, correct
We'd
that
like them back in the
2008?
same year.
Is that okay?
That's untrue.
All right.
Sorry about that.
It should read April 27, 2009 is when they're going to return. 2008, I mean. Same thing.
Well, it could be good to get your kid
Any other
out for a
questions
whole
on
year.
A1 through A7? Okay. Now can I get a roll call vote? And please note that Mr. Binder's
Where could you go for 22?
going to vote separately on A1 and A2 for the 19th of November.
Mr. Binder?
Yes,
Except for the 19th.
except for the 19th, which I abstained from.
Okay. Mr. Calzarano?
Yeah.
Harwitz?
Yep.
Ms. Mendel?
Yes.
Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, can I get a motion then on, does anybody want any of the Bs, B1 through B2 pulled for separate voting purposes at this time? We have motions B1 and B2.
Now, the memo covers.
Yep.
Okay.
I think the memo is indicating as they're going to be in
We'll
there.
add it
So we'll
tomorrow.
cover them.
Okay. Do you have a motion on B1 through B2, Harry? Nobody wants to have one pulled? Bernie's got
No,
it.
I'm saying, I think we should just go forward.
Pardon?
He's making the motion.
You're
We'll
making
make
the
the
motion. Okay, we
I'll
got a
second.
motion. Do I have a second? Okay. We got a second already. Rob, any discussion on B1 through B2?
So, P2. Oh,
Go ahead, Pete.
some of the concerns brought before this board by Mr. Bear, I'd like to hear some of the thoughts and answers to some of his questions, or whatever.
Okay. Dr. Stromberg?
Okay, yes, basically, the course is not in any way promoting or not promoting any particular religion, religious sect, religious philosophy, religious theory. It basically is a literary course that uses examples from various works of literature that have their roots in religion, such as the Bible, the Tanakh, Bhagavad Gita, various documents or known entities that are associated with religions, for those analogies, literary style, and genre. It is not in any way connected to a religious experience of any kind.
It's going to be a careful balancing act, though, to try not to...
Well, it's basically, what we find with, it's interesting that students, in casual conversation, you might say, use an analogy, something like, it's like the Enron and a small company, a mom and pop company. It's like a David and Goliath. And kids don't know what that analogy means. They know Enron, they know small mom and pop company, but they don't know when you say it's like a David and Goliath situation, what that means. So this isn't an attempt to promulgate the epistles of the New Testament, but basically to explain what those analogies mean when you talk about David and Goliath, or Cain and Abel, or any other of the Eastern religions, which I'm not as familiar with, to be able to give you an example.
Fran, to a certain extent, I can imagine, for example, when the teachers teach, world history, European history.
It comes up there too.
They're speaking to the issue of the world's major religions.
Exactly.
That's been addressed in other literature classes when
Exactly.
they're teaching, whether it's on Moby Dick or talking about the Bible. To a certain extent, it's the maturity and professionalism of our teachers to have the kids lead to discuss, and teachers without offering their opinions, whether they're a creationist or whether they're a evolutionist. So I think while there's always potential concerns, I don't think the subject matter is really that new. With respect to all sorts of other topics that the school is already teaching.
It's exactly right. It's well stated. It is covered in many other areas in the humanities and social studies, the similar types of themes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at it more that you're going backwards. You're looking at what's current today and then tying it back to
exactly.
where it may have come from in
where exactly the literary source,
the literary
genre.
sources. It's not the
Right.
other way around. We're
Exactly.
starting with those particular documents and
Exactly.
going forward. Okay.
Exactly.
Any other questions on the Bs, B1 or B2? Do I need a roll call vote? It'd probably be a good idea to get a roll call vote.
You're spending money.
We are spending money, if we find people that are interested. So can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Aye.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yagut?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Okay, we now have the Cs, which are matters of personnel, C1 through C6. Does anybody have any of these that they might want to pull for separate voting purposes? Peter, I'm sorry.
C1?
I'm looking down, I'm not, okay. Okay. Any others that might be pulled for separate voting purposes? Can I get a motion then on C2 through C6?
Move C2 through C6.
Second, can I get a second? Laura, seconds. Can I get any discussion on C2 through C6 at this time?
Just to check that all these were budgeted, the appointments of pay for, like C2, that's not new, I assume.
No, those are
Those are just filling positions that are already stipended?
That's correct.
Yes, I noticed that Chris Valenti was on that, in the extra services contract.
Yes,
Is
he does
in the
still.
bargaining unit?
No, he is not.
Is that just how we're?
That's just how we're paying.
him? So that's not as a bargaining unit person, that's just as a paid.
Just as a paid person in that, doing that function.
All right, any other questions on C2 through C6? Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Aye.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Okay,
I'll move C1.
do I have a second on C1? Ms. Mandel? Did you want to second it?
Second option.
She seconded,
Once you
okay.
put your hand up, you
Once you
can't
raise
make
your
it
hand,
back.
Discussion on
I put my paddle
C1.
up.
Pete, you'd wanted to pull. Did you have discussion on C1?
Yeah, I just,
You just want to vote separately?
separately, because I don't believe this changes anything from our discussion last week, and it doesn't, as I said, improve the efficiency and the best interest of the school and the overall operation on many levels. It creates another power position where the guy who controls the money becomes the czar. And that's what we don't need here, and it's a position, I think, that's, it's too broad, as well as potentially too expensive. Those are my thoughts after 45 years of having lived this position.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on C1 at this time?
I have similar concerns, but I have something just in the wording that I find very offensive. On the first page, on the second item, number 1, isn't there a better way than to use the words non-professional?
I'm sorry, Bernie,
The second item 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's sort of, unfortunately, it's sort of standard language when we're not talking about a person who's hired as an administrator or as a teacher.
How about saying buildings and grounds employees?
Certainly, I can do that, certainly.
I mean, I would find this very offensive if I were in that department.
So, Director, as modified, as suggested by Bernie, does anybody have
Doesn't mean
any
I'm going to
obje-
vote for it, but I'd still like to see the wording changed.
Does anybody have any objections to that? So we'll go ahead and make that change then. Any other changes or questions, comments at this time?
Let me make sure we get in the right spot. What number was that, Bernie, again?
The second
right
number
here.
1 on the first page.
It's right here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Grounds employees?
Yes.
That's what they are. Okay. Hearing no other comments, can I get a roll call vote then?
Binder?
Aye.
Gagliano?
No.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Abstain.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
No.
Dr. Yaget?
No.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
4-3-1, motion carries.
What is what are the votes?
4-3-1.
One
It's 4-3-1,
abstention.
one abstention.
The one is an abstention, I call that a tie. 4-3.
Let me just make that clear. This means doesn't mean that you're hiring this person, you're just
No.
creating a position,
Right.
right? I mean, you understand this, Peter?
I know that.
Yeah.
Because if you were hiring, wouldn't we need 6 votes in affirmative?
I don't know about
No.
this particular position.
Not
I
in
know
this
the
position.
VA, the superintendent,
Not in this level position, only in the
Position.
supermajority, only for us.
not the creation of a job.
We are creating a job description here. We're not, as Rob
Filling it.
accurately pointed out, we're not filling it at this point in time. Although we've already really agreed that we're going to fill that position in a prior discussion. That was the reason this has been brought forward. I mean, this is fairly old news at this point in time in terms of going through it. Okay. With that, we'll move on to the Ds. Does anybody want to pull any of the Ds, D1 through D16? We have a lot of them.
D4.
D4. Okay. Vote separately or just for discussion purposes?
I really just want to discuss it, but I don't know if that
You're not
makes
sure
sense.
where you may vote after that?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Any others that people want to pull, D1 through D16, for purposes that they might want to vote separately or differently?
Was, Who crafted the language for D4?
Attorneys,
There was entirely?
well, in collaboration with the business office.
Mainly.
Well, the reason I'm asking, and, we're involved in litigation. There's a lot of whereases, is that it? Okay. In particular, there's, since we are involved in litigation, for example, third whereas from the bottom, whereas Torcon has failed. If you tell me Gary's looked over this and he has no problem with it, has he vetted this? Fine. Then I'm not crazy about some of the declaratory language that is utilized there.
I think, okay. Now, Bernie, do you still want to pull D4 at this time? Still, okay. Well, any others that want to be pulled? D1 through D16, we've already pulled D4. D7? Okay, so D7 will be pulled.
If you're pulling D4, you might want to pull D5 also.
Probably should. We'll pull D5. Thanks for reminding me of that, Jerry. So now we have D4, D5, and D7 pulled. Does anybody else have any others that they want to pull for separate voting purposes? Hearing none others.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Bernie?
Again, this now is a clarification point on D8. I don't know if I could either ask you now whether or not it's an important enough thing to pull it, or would you like me to state what my concern is? The fact that there's no dollar amount listed on that.
Right, as an end point, yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean we ought to pull it, or what do you want to do?
I don't really think it's necessary. It's already been, if we're going to discuss this, we're going to go into executive session for discussion purposes.
Okay, let's pull it then.
Okay. Then we'll pull it, we'll vote for it. We'll pull it, and we'll discuss this in executive session later. Okay. Any other, do you agree with that? Yeah. Did anybody else have any others that they want to have pulled for purposes of discussion? Okay, let's, can I get then a motion on D1 through D3, D6, D9 through D16?
I'll move those.
Can I get a second on those?
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call vote on that?
I do have a question.
Do you have a question? I'm sorry. I'm just moving on.
Yeah. On D12, that's the checks that are canceled. This was one check I had a question on. It was made out to the American Cancer Society. Is that money that was raised like from students, or is that money from the high school that was being donated? Like $23 checks. And we're voiding out the check, and I'm just wondering, is there our money to even void out, or do we try to make?
I don't know.
I don't know if the source of the, are you talking about the source of where it came from?
Yeah.
I
mean,
quite
most of
frankly-
them I'm assuming that, well, I'm not sure how, I shouldn't assume anything about the checks, but
I honestly don't know.
that one struck me as being,
Quite frankly, I don't know the origin of the source of that. That's something I can find out for you. I just don't, I wouldn't know.
it seemed to,
I just know that it's stale and no good. Has to be canceled.
It's an old check, so.
well, I know these are all old checks.
Yeah. It's a matter of an audit observation that we're trying to
Clean up the books.
Old checks hanging around.
Okay, that was the question.
All right, can I get a roll, any other questions on the motion? Then can I get a roll call vote on the Ds that we're voting on?
Mr. Binder?
Aye.
Mr. Calderano?
Yep.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sung?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Can I get
For D4 and D5.
Yeah. I have a motion for D4 and D5. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Have you moved to discussion?
Yes, I'd like to just ask a few questions on it. What really bothered me, well, a very small issue first, this is the first time I've ever seen the Watchung Hills District referred to just as Watchung, and we don't do that in anything else, and it made me look a little closer, like why is this one so different? The second question I have is that we have statements about whereas Watchung issued the requisite 5-day notice. I think for the record, it should say when we did some of these things. And I find the whole thing just a little too loose to really be comfortable with it. And I think that I would like somebody to go through that and see, why don't we say when these things have happened? I mean, it does make a difference when these things happen. For instance, whereas Torcon has failed to demonstrate as of such and such date. I mean, the whole thing to me is not as tight as I would expect.
Well, Bernie, just as a lawyer, I would say that since Gary has vetted it, there things, resolutions that we're passing, this is all discoverable. And when you set forth things with particular alacrity and clarity with detailed dates, it can come back to haunt you if the dates might have been incorrect. It's sort of like in a pleading when you state things in a conclusory manner, alleging damages, so forth and so on. So that this I think is an area where probably less specificity is probably better.
Okay, I'll accept that. It just seemed odd how this whole thing was written.
Fair enough.
That was a question.
Go ahead.
That was a question we posed to Gary and to Michael, whether they were satisfied with the way this was written. And Gary did adamantly say this was very fine by him and Michael, and that, But I agree with you as far as the reference to Watchung.
Do we want to suggest that that be modified to change?
I think the first one, Watchung Regional High School, put in parentheses, Watchung.
Yeah, our lawyers, all our lawyers here will tell you that they generally abbreviate just because they're going to keep using it. They'll cut it.
But usually it's defined in the first sentence.
Right.
So for Bernie's suggestion, who moved and seconded it?
I moved it.
You moved it. Do you guys agree that we change that or make it clarified in the first line, Watchung Regional High School? Fair enough. Any other questions?
No.
Does anybody else have any questions on, now, the motion is on both D4 and D5. Does anybody have any?
Just Paul, one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
To clarify. In any reference to Watchung, do you want it to say Watchung Regional High School?
I think if we do it in the first one, it can then be, if they want to keep it short, that'll be fine. How do you want it?
You just abbreviate it.
WHRHS, that'll take care of it.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay, with that, can I get a roll call vote on D1 and D4 and D5?
Mr. Binder?
Aye.
Calzarano?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mandel?
Yes.
Pepe?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Seelig.
Can I get a motion on, we have
I moved D8.
D7.
D7 first? All right, let's
It was-
D7.
It was just a,
We got a motion on D7. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
Jerry moved it. Who seconded
I'll
it?
second.
Lou did. Who seconded it?
I just want to highlight this. Last year, when Fran and I were down in Wildwood at the convention,
Yes.
this was a major issue that we kept coming up with. All the projects, in order to be energy efficient, all right, we're stuck with that 5-year loan process. And the only way to make it affordable to the school district was by going 15 years. Now, this legislation will allow us to look into this alternative energy programs in a financially sound manner. So this is extremely important that this legislation get pushed out there and passed, because the alternative energy sources out there are within reach of us doing here with our roof space that we have here just for solar alone could really benefit us long term. So it's something that I just wanted to highlight and make sure everybody was aware that we have looked into this deeply.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on D7 at this time?
So Lou, what I'm hearing from you, you're saying that it's doable to put solar panels on?
Absolutely. We've already.
That's not what he said.
The process is doable. Problem is that the district can't afford it in a 5-year loan. It would have to be extended through a 15-year period. to make it feasible for us to even look at.
The payback is too long.
I would say solar, you need some offsetting credits anyway in terms of assistance by
There's-
itself.
Right, there's green
15 years,
tags, there's a
yeah.
whole mess of things, but what it comes down to is without an extended period of time for a loan, you could never do the project, so. But they've also rolled into now this is energy efficient systems. So our univents, our rooftop units, we could actually get a better enhanced control system in here, okay, and finance it through a longer period of time, which is another issue that we're dealing with right now. So it just makes it more affordable for us to go after these problems long-term.
So there is potential if this legislation goes through that it would benefit us with long-term
Big time,
savings in
yeah,
energy?
big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
A year ago, we went out and we got estimates for solar roof system. You know, they measured, they set it up, we had a whole program together. Then we started looking at the financing, and there's just no way we could do it. So we've also looked into wind power, geothermal. We looked into a lot of alternative energy sources. So the funding, it always came back to funding and financing.
Doesn't the payback time, isn't that really the critical number on this? What is the payback for solar?
It's long-term.
But
okay?
like, do you get your money back in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years?
Closer to 10.
10.
Yeah, it's closer to 10 to 12 is
Yeah.
what we saw.
Yeah, and what's nice is the solar panels are guaranteed for 20 years. Okay. And the collectors also, which is nice, because very rarely you get a guarantee on equipment for that long a period of time. So.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Can I get a roll call?
Don't need a roll.
We don't need a roll call. Can I just get a voice vote on D7? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
I'll
Carries.
move D8 then.
Can I get a motion on D8?
So moved.
Oh, no, we're going to move that into executive session. We'll take
Okay.
that into executive session.
And come back and do that.
We'll have a short discussion on that and then come back out of that, okay? Okay. So that, we will then go on to other business. I had one other item for other business. Rob teed it up in his discussion, the Finance Committee, about setting up another committee here, a short committee here. What was the name you used, Rob? Sponsorship committee?
I would say crass to say revenue enhancement opportunities, or sponsorship. I mean, it's basically marketing and sponsorship opportunities. Where
that sounds good. The M&S committee. And
not S&M.
Not S&M.
I'm thinking M&Ms.
And I was looking, I think I talked with Fran about it and then talked with Rob briefly about it. And, Rob's been out there trying to help get these things stimulated, motivated. And I thought it'd help if we got some more energy of the board behind it to try to help move some of these things forward. So I was looking for volunteers to help.
Is there a policy on how we can do this or not do, or what we can do, or what's, what we accept?
In terms of what, setting up another
sponsorships, and I remember there's a policy that's...
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I think that's one of the things that this committee is going to have to take a look at, is the issues around policy, the legal issues, as well as in opportunities. And so we do have a policy that covers some of this. Rob, I think you pointed out to me there is a policy.
There is, and I think it basically comes down to the the board and the administration saying is separately is what we're hoping to achieve done in good taste. I mean, needless to say, alcohol, tobacco, sponsorships are not going to be offered within the school. And then there's a second issue, which is really more, Tim, in regarding whether we have to issue RFPs, bidding. I mean, hypothetically, if a bank out there said we'd love to sponsor the football field, and we're willing to pay X dollars per year, and we sort of all know that's a great offer. No one's been beating down the drums. They're probably, Tim, right? Correct me. It'd probably be a requirement to issue an RFP to at least validate the fact that there's only one, interested party. So
volunteers.
Well, I mean, as finance, I want to do this. I mean, also, I think it's important that there's some, I don't want to say autonomous groups, but there are other groups out there that have expressed interest, the foundation, PTO organizations, they're always, trying to, helping to raise money, so I think, there would be some, relationship or linkage with that, so. What do you think, Laura?
Well, I'm already committed on other projects.
Well, I'm not into committees of one. Peter?
I will volunteer to join
Peter?
you on it.
Not this time.
Not this time. Eric, Lou, Jerry?
I will join you on it.
Okay, so we'll have
Bernie raised his hand.
Bernie raised his hand.
Did you? Oh, Bernie,
Yeah.
good, okay.
So we got three.
Three.
There you go. It's a start.
All right, with that, we have a committee of three. We can set up our first meeting then, and we'll start to proceed forward from there. Okay?
And the first trip was, right, we agreed to Las Vegas to see the marketing opportunities, that was the first
I
trip?
thought this time you were headed
South,
to the Highlands.
was Miami, South Beach, and that was it. Too bad, guys.
Right, it'll come up on a trip or switch. Is there any other new business at this point in time, or other business, I should say? Okay, with that, it's the second opportunity for public to comment, and you can comment on whatever you would like to at this point in time. Keep your comments short, 5 minutes or less, name and address. Hearing no volunteers. Can I get a motion to move into executive session where we'll discuss confidential matters that are going to be governed by attorney-client privilege, and after which action may be taken?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Second, okay.